is these GLPs shut down your appetite and the food noise. A lot of people have the food noise, and it's so freeing to not be thinking about food all day, and you can actually enjoy your life and think about work and your family and your animals and everything. But it's not fixing the root problem. The thyroid, the liver health, we have liver disease skyrocketing. We've got hypothyroidism skyrocketing. So here you are, you're on a calorically restricted diet, whether you're on a GLP or not. So you're slowing down your metabolism, but you're not fixing the underlying problem. So what do you do or recommend supplement wise or other modalities to fix that root problem while someone is on a GLP?
Yeah, great question. And I would say that most people, the reason why they venture into a GLP is because they have a broken physiology, right? The functions of the body has been broken or compromised in some sort of way. And that's why their metabolism is broken. That's why they're retaining weight. That's why they're not feeling good and they have inflammation. And so to solve all of that, why is that the case is, well, one of the biggest things that is going on to the world, to all of us, no matter where we live, is toxicity. We can't avoid toxins, and no matter what country you're in, even in Europe, there are toxins. So there's just less. But if you're in the U.S., we for sure have a lot of toxins, from pesticides, herbicides. Sick buildings. 70% of buildings have mold in it, to plastics, right, which are hormone disruptors. There are other chemicals that are hormone disrupting. And so that messes up our hormones, that messes up our metabolism, that messes up how we make use of food and nutrients and turn it into energy and how we regulate. And so we damage the cells, specifically mostly the mitochondria, but really all parts of the cells become damaged when we are exposed to these poisons. And if the longer we are exposed to those poisons, the harder it is to recover, which is why people will say, at least for me, and my patient population, they come to me because they say, I am doing all the things.
Yeah.
I'm exercising, I'm eating right, I'm fasting, I'm doing sauna, I'm doing red light, I'm doing supplements, and I'm still not getting results. And so that's why they want to have the conversation of using a GLP, right? And so that's what I help people with is, not only are we going to focus on, yes, helping you with the weight loss, but how do we optimize everything on the back end as well, right? If you have a high level of toxicity, well, you're for sure going to be overburdening the liver. The liver is your main detoxifying organ, and the liver does like 500 things. Back in the day, when before man-made toxins, it didn't have to do so many things. So the liver can help you with blood sugar regulation. It can help you with metabolism. It can help you with during times of famine or cold, to even like the summertime where there's a lot of food and whatnot. It has a lot of metabolic flexibility built in. But nowadays, the liver is like, well, I have to deal with the plastic that's coming from in that's contaminating the food and the water. Oh, I have to deal with the pharmaceutical remnants that's coming in the tap water, and then I have to deal with the heavy metals that are in our atmosphere or just like really from anywhere. And so there's so many things that the liver has to deal with. There, the emphasis on your metabolism is really not there anymore. And so now we shift towards a survival state. And logically speaking, if an organism is in a survival state, then it would be more so trying to accumulate and try to store things too. And so we try to store nutrients, we try to store glucose, turns into fatty acid. But then another thing is that some people, about half the population, has a genetic deficiency, or people call it mutation or a polymorphism, right? A SNP. People have heard of things like MTHFR, methylation problems. Essentially, those folks have a lesser ability to detoxify these synthetic toxins. So the body start doesn't know what to do with it, and it accumulates in the body. It might be stored in the fat cells. It might be stored in your nervous system. It might be accumulating in the organs, or maybe even in the tubules inside the kidneys. And those things create long term damage and chronic disease. So, if you, and about half the population has these deficiencies. So, if that's not being addressed, then their bodies accumulate toxins. It further breaks down those cellular functions. And then over time, then we start to see things like fatigue and gut issues and hormonal imbalance, right? On top of the weight gain, right? So fixing all of that is definitely part of the picture. And, but I would say that the liver is kind of in the middle of all of that, right? And I can't think of a better thing than using like accelerated liver care for helping the liver. I think it's very well balanced, right? The number one thing I love in there is TUDCA. I think TUDCA is such a great thing for the liver.
Yeah.
And then also you have things to help buffer out estrogen.
Yeah.
And I mentioned that a lot of the chemicals that we're exposed to today are estrogen mimicking, or they're endocrine disruptors. So most of them are estrogenic. And the body has to, no matter whether you're male or female, it has to clear and buffer out estrogen through the liver. And if your liver is really slow, because again, it's dealing with other things, then it's not going to be buffering out estrogen fast enough, and that can cause men to have be more estrogen dominant, right? And where maybe, well, men nowadays have lower testosterone, but there's also a second battle, which is there's higher estrogen. So
Mhm.
not only is there lower testosterone, but there's also higher estrogen. And we men need estrogen, but we don't need that much of it. And again, applied in improper timing and in improper pathways, it could be really detrimental. It could be really inflammatory. So there's two battles that are going on there. So I think one of the best things is to help the body clear estrogen, and then also helping the liver clear toxins as well too. For females, it's if you're still menstruating, every cycle, every period that you have, about a few days before, you have this estrogen surge. Body's just dumping estrogen as it's supposed to,
Mhm.
on top of maybe the xenosynthetic estrogens that we're getting exposed to. And so that creates more problems: PMS, estrogen dominance, PCOS, fibroids, pain, mood swings. And then for the menopausal or perimenopausal women, right, they may experience those mood swings, hot flashes, and whatnot. So, all in all, everything kind of goes back to that liver. And then tying it back to the GLPs is, well, the thing about, if you are doing a high enough dose, and you don't need to really, it doesn't really take that much to get the gut to slow down, but that's a very important thing. And when you slow everything down, you may not be digesting your food properly. So I want to make sure that the food is being digested properly, and also there's enough bile flow so that it's digesting fats and whatnot. And so the tutka in there as a bile salt, I think, is a very smart thing to do. And so if people are on GLPs, I would even say, hey, liver care, 3 in the morning, 3 at night.
Mhm.
And if we're working on detoxification, I would even push that, maybe three times a day, depending on the needs.
Yeah. I actually had to get to a point where when my liver enzymes were really through the roof, and a testimonial to what you're saying is when my liver was backed up, my testosterone was in the tank, my female hormones were out of whack, my thyroid hormones were out of whack, because it's all controlled in the liver. I did 4 to 5 caps twice to 3 times a day because my liver enzymes were so high, and it brought them down very quickly. And the other thing that you were talking about, as far as the slowing the gastric emptying, well, it's slowing everything down, and you're more prone to being constipated. Well, when you're constipated, you're recycling the toxins even more on top of what the new toxins are coming in that next day, right? And so the accelerated liver care actually helps with the bowel movements as well. Now you may need to throw in something else, maybe a little magnesium to help things move,